everybody, I'm Leah B. Jackson, and this is professional gamer Greg Idra Fields.
Hey, Leah.
Hey, today Greg and I are going to show you the best way to play as Abathur in Heroes of the Storm. Let's get to it.
Ready to go.
Okay. Alright, so here we are in try mode with Abathur, one of the weirdest heroes in Heroes of the Storm. Tell us about him and his abilities.
Yeah, by far the strangest hero. You don't even really go out onto the map with this hero. I'm going to move out here just because this is where the action is going to be happening. But generally speaking, you're going to be sitting in your base for most of the game. Abathur doesn't directly fight. He has the lowest base HP, I believe the lowest attack damage in the game. He does not want to be anywhere near another hero. What he does is he acts through his abilities. His passive is called Locust Strain, and what it does is it passively spawns. It's going to happen in 10 seconds, don't really want to wait for that. But here you can see this here. That was a Locust, and it passively spawns this little creature that pushes down whatever lane you are closest to when it spawns. So we're about to have one pop out, and that just happens absolutely passively. You have no part in that. You can upgrade them so they push better for you, but that's just always going to be coming out, always pushing the lane a little bit. Your other abilities, Symbiote is your Q, and that's how you actually interact with the game in a more direct way early on. And what you do is you cast that on an allied hero, it locks you to their screen, and you gain these additional abilities. You have a skill shot, line damage kind of thing, very low cooldown, very spam, but not a ton of damage. Your W is an AoE, it shoots out spines, it does damage, you can upgrade it to do a slow as well. And then E just activates a shield for a decent amount of damage on whatever hero you're symbioted to. And then there's a bunch of talents that can also upgrade whatever else you do, but for the most part, it's just those things. And we killed him. Yay. Now, your W is Toxic Nest, and that's a gigantic range ability. You can see the little circle on the minimap. It goes all the way out there. It's not quite global until you upgrade it. And what this does is it places a nest that has a little bit of a burrow time. And then once that burrowed, if any enemy walks near it, it will activate, doing damage and a slow. I'm not sure if he runs away from it or what, but we'll see if this activates. And there, it blows up, and a little bit of an AoE. Very minor damage, very minor slow, just kind of annoyance. It's good to use to force dismounts and just kind of be a general obnoxious, annoying little thing. And then there is no E on Abathur, so there's no third ability. But his ultimate evolution, he only has one choice for his ultimate, so it's going to be this no matter what. And what that does is it actually makes a copy of an allied hero. Cast it on Malfurion here. A little bit of a spawn time, but then you'll see I get everything he does. I have his passive, I have his active abilities. After a 10-second cooldown, I will have his ultimate. You do not gain, you also have the ability to mount when you're in this form, so you can do that as well. The only thing you do not gain is you do not gain activatable abilities. If he had a shield talent, or the shield talent, I would not be able to use that. But you do gain everything else. You can use his Q, use his W, use his E, everything.
For a pretty long period of time, too.
Yeah, you hold on to it for a good amount of time, and the level 20 upgrade actually increases that duration, I believe, or it just decreases the cooldown to about 60 seconds. So you can pretty much always have a clone up as you get into the late game. Makes it very, very powerful. So this is how he directly interacts with the fight. And there you see you pop out immediately and you go back to your original location. And while you have that clone out, your real body is hidden and invulnerable.
Alright, well let's take a look at how we can upgrade Abathur some more through his talents.
Now, unfortunately for Abathur, he has a couple of great talents at level 1. The Envenom Nest, where you do an additional 30% damage over 3 seconds, and the Survival Instinct, where you gain 30% increased health on your Locust. Unfortunately, he is the best bribe user in the game. He can actually stack bribe both with his actual body, just by being nearby the minions as they die in lane, and also his symbiote, so he can essentially stack bribe at double the speed of anyone else if he does it properly. So bribe is pretty much just too good to pass up on him, even though you would really love to have either of those two talents, but you pretty much just have to get it. Then at level 4, this is a bit of an iffy tier for him. A lot of his talents are kind of iffy in my opinion, because his Q and his W, they have base impact, and they don't really get upgraded that much, so it's not really too important what you do with them. Generally speaking, I will get the Ballista Spheres, which allows your nest to be placed unlimited range anywhere on the map. That's very helpful, as that's just a very annoying part of your hero, something you can definitely take advantage of. Promote is worth considering, as you are kind of a push-oriented hero. You can push pretty well once you get up to level 16. So that's worth playing around with, but generally speaking, the global range on your Toxic Nest is quite helpful. Then at level 7, I would generally say that the Vile Nest, the 50% slow on your Toxic Nest, is the best way to go. But again, everything is a little bit mediocre. The slow is nice, though, so I would focus on that. If you're having survivability issues, regenerative microbes, it causes your symbiote to buff the healing of whichever hero it's on. But a lot of the time, you're going to be using your symbiote on creeps to push waves. It's not quite as helpful there. Generally speaking, you're just going to... This is quite a bit of an extra annoyance to the enemy, so that's good to have. Then at level 10, you only have the one option, obviously, the ultimate evolution. So not a whole lot to talk about there. Level 13, I generally get the Bombard strain. Into the late game, you are either going to be in a clone actually actively fighting, or you're going to be pushing a wave for the most part. And Bombard strain makes your locusts great pushers. It allows them to actually outrange turrets, even outrange the palace. So that gives you quite a bit of pushing power, and in combination with the talent we're going to get at the next level, really works out quite well for you. And at that point, your symbiote barely does anything at all, so it's not really worth getting the extra stab. Then at level 16, as I've been mentioning, Swarm Nest is a fantastic ability. It allows you to actively spawn 3 locusts in an area close to you. So what you can do is you just tunnel in, you put those locusts up, and they start pushing down a lane. You get 3 or 4 of them going at once. They actually do a pretty respectable amount of damage, and if they are left unchecked, they will push down towers eventually. So really helps your utility when you are not in your Ultimate Evolution form. Then at level 20, you get the Evolution Master, and as I said, it lowers the cooldown of Ultimate Evolution to 9 seconds and increases the duration to 60 seconds. So 2/3 of the time, you can be whoever you want to be, which is, of course, really, really helpful. And as I said, that's the way you directly interact with the team fight. Everything else you do is helpful, but a little bit gimmicky, a little bit indirect, lacking presence. So this is what really allows you to have a huge impact on the game.
So for him, it seems like you're sort of building up his nests early game and helping your team deal damage that way. And then in the later game, you sort of become more of a force with the clone.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so now that we have Abathur set up, how do you use him effectively in the game?
You have to be pretty good to use him effectively, honestly. He's very different from every other hero. You have to have great map awareness and actually a surprising amount of speed because he has to be everywhere at once. You always have to be looking around to see where he can have the most impact. His symbiote is on about a 3-second cooldown, so you can constantly be hopping between different allies who need your assistance. And whenever that's not happening, you need to be placing toxic nests wherever they can be most effective. And if no hero needs your assistance, then you need to be hopping onto a minion in a lane to push that down and try and create some more pressure on the enemy. So really, it's just nothing that he does is too complicated. It's just about finding where you need to be focusing your attention, where you need to be helping out at any given moment. Because he obviously has 0 direct impact on the game until he gets his ultimate. And so you have to be really, really conscientious of that and really try and help out your team in whatever way possible and take advantage of your mobility, because that's the only thing you really have going for you there. And not direct mobility, but your ability to have an impact on the game anywhere on the map at any given moment. Also, your team needs to be very aware that they have an Abathur and that they are essentially fighting 4v5. Symbiote helps a little bit, but not nearly as much as having another actual hero in the fight. So they need to be very careful about picking fights until you really come online. And then come the late game, the general obvious strategy is just make a clone of your damage dealer, put out double Hyperion, and just kind of go crazy. But you have to be very aware that you can make a clone of any different hero you want. So if you have enough damage output, if people would die if they could be locked down, then it's not really worth it to make another Rainer and have another right-click damage that can't chase anyone. It might be better to make a copy of your ETC or your Uther and get the additional stun or the additional lockdown if that is what your team needs. So that's just another level of complexity and depth to the hero. You have to be able to play pretty much every other hero in the game if you really want to be a legit Abathur, because you need to be able to hop onto any clone at any given time depending on what your team needs. And in terms of counterplay, it's kind of difficult because he's just going to sit in his base doing whatever he wants, and unless you catch him deep tunneling out to a camp to bribe it, or just trying to go somewhere to push a lane, and you happen to jump on him when he's vulnerable, you're not really going to be able to directly punish him for anything. It's just kind of be aware that he lacks presence in the early game, so try and, same as with Gazelle, you try and force fights when he doesn't really do that much before he comes online. And then in the later game, they're just kind of going to have double of whatever hero is going to hurt you most. So it's going to be tough to deal with, but that's the makeup for him having a very weak, indirectly impactful early game. So that's just the trade-off that is made, and you need to try and get yourself far enough ahead in the early game that you can then deal with that in the late game.
And there you have it, guys. But remember, this is our best way to play, and we want to hear yours in the comments.
Be sure to head over to Greg's Twitch channel for more pro tips, and for everything Heroes of the Storm, stay tuned to IGN.